ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। ॐ श्रीचिन्मय सद्गुरवे नमः। योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचां योपामलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत्तं प्रवरं मुनीनां पातञ्जलि प्राञ्जलिना नतोऽस्मि। हरि ओम। So far we were trying to understand what is sampradnyat and asampradnyat samadhi or sampradnyat and asampradnyat avastha. We have still not got into the details of the sutra which talks about vitarka vichara ananda asmita anugama sampradnyataha. This is the sutra that we are studying. We have not yet entered into the sutra. We were trying to create the ground for understanding of the sutra. So far in the earlier whatever number of sutras that we have done, we were trying to understand Patanjali Maharaj's standpoint as far as the Chitta Vritti Nirodha is concerned. We should not be losing the sight on the main theme of the Patanjali Yoga Sutra. The main theme is to work on the mind. The entire treatise is only speaking of the mind, the Antakarana. And so far we have seen that Antakarana is subjected to vagaries, which are generally called as vrittis. Colloquially coined term is thought. And we saw different types of thoughts, what effects they create in terms of the avastha of the chitta, which we saw as Mudha, Kshipta, Vikshipta, Niruddha, Ekagra, and Niruddha. These are the resultant effects of the vrittis. Vrittis we saw are of 5 types: Vrittaya, Panchataya, Klishtaya, Aklishtaya, that we saw. And then we understood the point that the whole purpose of Yoga Shastra is to do the nirodha of the vrittis that emanate in the chitta. That brought us to 2 important instruments which we must adopt before we finally attempt to do the chitta vritti nirodha. And those 2 instruments were vairagya and abhyasa. We also saw the different types of vairagya, mainly the para vairagya and apara vairagya. We saw apara vairagya is divided into those 4 different types, where yatikara, vashamana, and slowly it moves towards the vashikara saudhnya, the final apara vairagya, then transforming into para vairagya. Presuming that we have done enough amount of Dirghakala Satkara Sevita Drudabhumi, Abhyasam has been completed, Vairagyam has been completed. Now what happens to the yogi? The yogi has successfully detached himself from the external world. He is ready to take the plunge into the internal world of the mind. Nothing in the visible outer world is disturbing him at all. In fact, he is not even aware of it, because he has learned the art of concentration. The concentration has been learned mainly because of the Vairagya. Both are in a way same statements. Leave your attachments to the outside world is Vairagya. And when you leave the attachment, naturally you can attach then to something different, that is concentration, ekagrata. This is precisely what Gurudeva calls detach yourself, vairagya, to attach concentration, ekagrata. And in that connection, we came to the stages the antakarana of a yogi passes through once he has achieved the state of vairagya. And while understanding those states, which are 4 in number, starting from vitarka, ending in asmita. Last time we also saw that these are 4 stations, not compartmentalized enough, but a kind of a fluid situation where the yogi begins the journey at the point of vitarka and ends its journey at the point of asmita. Now, since those 4 words are difficult to understand, as it is, what we are trying to study is difficult to understand intellectually, because these are experiential states encountered by the yogis, and we are trying to grapple them without getting ourselves mentally prepared for the same. A yogi's mind is, through his abhyasa, prepared for the experience, while our mind is not even prepared for the study of it, simply because the sharpness of the intellect, which means the intellect is less sattvika, because we are involved into day-to-day activities and our distractions are so many that the raja and tama in our buddhi is quite predominant. Being predominant, we are not able to understand it, so we are trying our level best to bring out the sattva guna in our buddhi, so that at least intellectually we can comprehend what Patanjali Maharaj is trying to say. And we are doing a sincere attempt towards it. So that is why we are trying to take many via medias in order to understand what precisely Patanjali Maharaj is wanting to say. As told earlier, henceforth, the deeper plunge is going to start in Yoga Shastra. Many people ask a question that so far it was going smooth, not very smooth, but at least it was understandable. There is a chitta, there is a vritti, there are 5 types. All of a sudden, how is it that the samadhi came in between? We have still not been told about the Ashtanga path. No, nothing is spoken about yama, niyama, himsa, ahimsa, asateya, brahmacharya, and then we have not been talked about the yogasanas, the pranayam, and suddenly you are coming towards samadhi. The explanation to this is Patanjali Maharaj has written Yoga Sutra for the person who has already been competent to read the Yoga Shastra. That is why the word Atha Yoga Anushasanam. Atha means after you have practiced and studied other scriptures, you have come to a final treatise. And that is why it is presumed that we have reasonable experience and intellect both to understand the subject. And that is why it is becoming difficult for us slightly. We shall try to make it as simple as possible. And that is why we are trying to take the help of Vyasa Bhashya, Vachaspati Mishra, Vijnan Bhikshu, authors like Swami Vivekananda Maharaj. We are also trying to take example of Mr. Temni, the theosophist, who wrote beautifully on this science of yoga. We are also trying to see from the Kaivalya Dham edition. The whole concept is to understand is as much as possible. And in that attempt to understand, we had started learning Sankhya Tattvajnan for the creation of the universe. This is where you had come to the last time, to this point we had come. Sankhya Tattvajnan forms the basis of yoga in terms of philosophical understanding. Yoga is the practical counterpart, but the theory comes from Sankhya Yoga. So unless theory is understood, the practical part is bound to become little difficult. And that is why we have now directly undertaken the basic and fundamental principle of Sankhya philosophy understanding as far as creation is concerned. And in that creation, we saw last time that the first to come in existence, or first to ever exist, not to come in existence, but to ever exist, is the absolute consciousness called Purusha. It is infinite consciousness. In Advaita, the same thing is called Brahman. But now we are in Sankhya, so we are going to call it Purusha. Then we realize that we also studied that this absolute consciousness called Purusha, somehow, why the word somehow? Because it is not possible to understand for the human intellect what made the absolute consciousness come into the form of beings. What is the motive behind creation of the world? Or in modern man's language, why the hell the world was created? Because it is hellish to us. We do not know the reason for it simply because at the level where we are studying it, it is difficult to comprehend. And that is why it is also called as a Vyakruta Prashna, not to be asked at this moment of time. Presuming that the absolute consciousness had some will, sankalpa, it is called sankalpa. And then it decided to become active, potentiate itself. So first thing is, in the absolute consciousness, the potentiality developed. See, the potentiality is always first and the action is always later. In a dam, we collect water and the potential energy is created. And from there, when the hydroelectric dam is produced, the kinetic energy, the electricity starts flowing forward. In this example or analogy, the potential is existing in the stored water of the dam. That is called potential. But moment you start pouring water into the dam, the potentiality is flowing into the dam. So the absolute consciousness, when it decides to create the world, the first thing that happens is there is a birth of potentiality. Once the potentiality is born, then the potential automatically comes forward. So this potentiality is Prakriti. Because we normally have a concept that Prakriti is some substance from which everything is created. We need to understand Prakriti is a mode of operation. It is not a substance, it is a mode of operation. Potentiality getting potentiated for the purpose of creation of universe is Prakriti. So Purusha and Prakriti, I hope we are clear up to this point. Now that the universal projection or objectification is going to happen, there appears a very important element that whatever is going to be created, it must know that it is created. Otherwise, what is the creation? Let us take an example. Let us say that this pen is created, right? Now, no one knows that the pen is created. What is the point in creation? That means somebody has to be aware that the pen is created. Similarly, when the Prakriti, the potentiation of the Purusha creates the universe, there is simultaneously awareness of the creation. This awareness of the creation is called cosmic consciousness or Mahat Tattva. Mahat Tattva. It also presumes one more important statement. If the cosmic consciousness or the creation becomes aware of its creation, that means prior to cosmic consciousness, there is no awareness. When there is no awareness, what does that mean? In the absolute consciousness stage, you can't be aware, because to be aware, you have to be aware of something. Of means you and awareness, again, two. And absolute consciousness is one. So absolute consciousness cannot be aware of something, but he is aware of himself. While in creation, in projection, in universe creation, the universe becomes conscious of the universe. That is called cosmic consciousness, Mahat Tattva. And this Mahat Tattva, when it becomes aware That awareness is pure awareness is called ahankara. I am the world. That I am the world, I am is ahankara. Now, please understand, ahankara, the word has been unfortunately used in two different contexts, and we must be very, very clear about it. Normally, we say you should not have ahankar, this me, my. That ahankar is different. I'm not talking about it at all. That is dambha, ahankar, dambha, darpa, that is different. That we are not talking. That is a wrong identification of yourself with your body, etc. That's a different thing. We are talking of ahankar means awareness of I am, pure awareness of I am. Ahankar. Recapitulate. Absolute consciousness, Prakruti the potency creating something called Mahat Tattva, the cosmic consciousness, and awareness of cosmic consciousness, Ahankara. So Purusha, Prakruti, Mahat, Ahankara. First four important tattvas are formed. Mahat is also called Buddhi. Another name for Mahat is Buddhi. Up to this point, if we understand, now we are ready to understand the creation of the world. These four tattvas are before the manifestation which could be differentiated. So far, differentiation hasn't started. Consciousness, let us say, that is like a lump of mud. Now the lump of mud is pressed to create something. Prakriti has started acting. So far, nothing has happened. Moment a shape is created out of the mud, the shape, the cosmic consciousness is that new shape that is created. That new shape, becoming aware of its shape, is ahankara. So Purusha, Prakriti, Mahat Tattva or Buddhi, and Ahankar. Four tattvas initially are formed. Nothing is so far differentiated. So far, the Trigunas have just emerged, but they are still in balance. Up to Ahankara, the Prakriti is Gunanvai. Prakriti itself means it has three gunas into it. They are embedded. But so far they are still in balance. These three are in perfect tuning with each other. Now what happens is, after Ahankara, the Sattva, Rajatama, these three gunas, they start imbalancing. This imbalance, this less and more of Sattva, Rajatama, or the three gunas of Prakriti, is the beginning of universe. In Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan is telling Arjuna to become Nistraigunya. Nistraigunya means he was telling that you go beyond this beginning thing. So go back to cosmic consciousness, Mahat Tattva, and then ascend upwards towards the Purusha. Why we are studying the evolution or creation of the universe as per Sankhya Tattvajnan is, it is related to the sadhana that is done in Yoga Sutra. We are right now trying to study evolution in the terms of Sankhya Tattvajnana. Patanjali Yoga Sutra and these four samadhi that we saw is called involution. You go back. The world is created in this particular manner, one after the other, one after. It is like a cascade coming down, and then I am at the end. At the bottom end, I am as a human being, as a bodily person, Jiva. Now the Jiva has to go towards up towards Purusha, that is Shiva. So Jiva is traveling backwards towards Shiva. So what is happening? You are again merging yourself with the higher and the higher and the higher till we go to the point where it all started, the Purusha. Reaching the Purusha is called Kaivalya. And from Purusha coming down is what we are studying. So from Purusha, Prakriti, Mahat Tattva, Ahankara. Up to this point we saw. Now the gunas, the teen gunas, three guna of the Prakriti, they started doing chala bichalata, chanchalata. They are started moving now. With the movement, what will happen? One guna will be predominant, other will not be predominant. The third may become predominant. Moment this happens, creation starts. And when the creation starts, the creation has two aspects to it. One is bhogi, the sharira. All the jivas are created. And bhog, because if suppose we all are born, but there is nothing around, there is no nature, nothing, no food, fire, nothing. What is the point in we having it? So bhog and the bhogi, the jiva and the enjoyment, both have to be there. That is why sukshma prakriti and sthula prakriti both have to be created. Sukshma prakriti means all jivas have sukshma prakriti, and whatever gross things that we see around, what we call normally nature, is sthula prakriti. Sukshma and sthula both are created from gunas. Guna is the only thing that creates both sthula and sukshma. The way of creation is different. Which guna will predominate is different in sthula and sukshma. The operation, the modality is different of creation. But sukshma and sthula sharira is created, sthula prakriti is created from the gunas. After the ahankar stage, when these gunas start becoming predominant or less predominant, the tamo guna is the main guna for the creation. It might sound a little absurd in the beginning, but tamo guna is the main guna. It is a very jada guna. Tamo guna is the main guna for creation. But one cardinal principle in gunas is no guna exists in its purity. So moment I say sattva guna, that means it may be 99.99, but there will be 0.001 other gunas into it. Sammishrata, mixture modality, is the cardinal principle of gunas, the qualities. So from tamo guna, the ahankar, that fourth tattva that we called, it takes sattva guna from that part of tamo guna. It takes sattva guna and creates jnanendriya. So we saw Purusha, Prakriti, Mahattattva and Ahankar. Up to this point, Guna Samyavastha is there. From Ahankar, this Ahankar takes Tamo Guna. From that Tamo Guna, it takes Sattva Guna in predominance and creates Jnanendriya. That is why our Jnanendriyas are the most sophisticated organs, because it has more Sattva Guna into it. All our organs of perception, the eyes, the ears, they are finer modalities of sensation. They have a work, their functioning is far superior to grabbing anything by hand. The karmendriya is inferior. Jnanendriya is superior. The reason is Jnanendriyas are made up from the sattva guna. Sattva guna, from where the sattva guna came, that part and parcel of the tamo guna. So out of the tamo guna, sattva guna is taken and jnanendriya is formed. Rajo guna is taken and karmendriya are formed. What is the function of the sattva guna? Sattva guna's function is closer to the knowledge. That is why our organs of perception, the jnanendriya, they give us knowledge. Like you see from the eyes and you come to know. Without any movement you come to know, because it is jnanendriya. While Rajoguna, Raja means halchal, movement. That is why karmendriyas, wherever you want to grab, you want to catch, you want to run, you want to do, the karmendriyas are meant for running and walking, because Rajoguna does that. So karmendriya, jnanendriya. Jnanendriya from Sattva Ansha, Karmendriya from Rajo Ansha. Now, out of these 5 Jnanendriyas we have, the Chakshu, Karna, these 5 Jnanendriyas that we have, these Jnanendriyas, each of them have Sattva Guna into it. If we further take pure Sattva Guna from these 5 Jnanendriyas and roll it together, what are we doing? Jnanendriyas are made from Sattva Guna. We take Sattva Guna because Sattva Guna pure predominance is there in the Jnanendriyas, but only Sattva Guna from there, if it is taken and rolled again together, it makes Antakarana. We started from the point of Ahankara, the 4th Tattva. And we said everything which is Sthula and Sukshma is created from Tamoguna. Out of the Tamoguna, Sattvangsha is taken, Jnanendriyas are formed. Each Sattvangsha of each Jnanendriya is taken and clubbed together, Antakaran is formed. That Antakaran is what we were studying so far, the Chitta. Why this classification is important? You would realize that purer the Sattva Guna, higher the function. Jnanendriyas are right now in the Sthula Sharira, in the gross body, the best organ is Jnanendriya. We all agree to that. Because what eyes can do, what ears can do, that is not comparable with hand. Because this gives jnana. This works. It doesn't give much jnana. Sparsha, that is only what we come to know from here. The skin. So Jnanendriyas give us jnana, and taking Sattva Guna of all the Jnanendriyas, the mind or the Antakaran is formed. Antakaran is the place where everything is understood. Mind, mana. That means the highest organ that we have in our body is Antakarana, because it is Sattva Guna Pradhanyata. So we have Sattva Guna creating Jnanendriya, Purna Sattvangsha of the Jnanendriyas creating Antakarana. Similarly, we have Rajoguna creating Karmendriya. Now, Shuddha Rajogunansha of all the Karmendriyas together forms Prana. Now, Rajoguna is meant for what? Halchal. We said movement, right? Now, if movement of hand and feet we see every day because of Rajoguna, the essence of Rajoguna rolled together to form a prana. That is why the prana's main action is Chalana Valana. It keeps moving. Breathing, breathing, breathe in, breathe out. Movement of pran, apan, vyan. We know the 5 different types of Mukhya pranas and 5 types of Upapranas. We will come to that later. Those pranas are constantly moving in the body, constantly moving Rajoguna. Jnanendriya don't move. Chitta Antakaran doesn't move at all. Why? Jnanendriya Sattvangsha Pradurbhava. Karmendriya and Prana Rajoguna Pradurbhava. Now, if this is understood, Sukshma Sharira is understood. Now, what are we seen so far? Creation of Pancha Jnanendriya, Pancha Karmendriya, Pancha Prana, and that Antakarana, which subsequently differentiates between Mana, Buddhi, Chitta, Ahankar, those subtypes. So that is how the first 4 tattvas, which one? Purush, Prakriti, Mahat, Ahankar, those 4. These 5, 5, 5, with these, the main 25 tattvas are formed. So we are missing 5 tattvas in this. Which are those missing tattvas? And that is a very important concept. That is why I have kept it little separate, which we want to discuss now. As I told you earlier, Purusha is an absolute consciousness which created Prakriti, and Prakriti created everything. This is how we understand. We try to see that Prakriti is not a substance, but it is a mode of operation, the potentiality to potentiate. Fair enough. Hopefully, we understood this. One thing we must have observed that every time anything is created, which is called karya, and every karya has to have a karana. Without cause, there is no effect. Now, the question is, when the karya gets full blown and manifested, let us take example of somebody who is suffering from typhoid. So what is the karya? He's having fever, he's weak, he's lying in the bed, he doesn't have appetite, he's vomiting. These are all effects karya. What is the cause? That small ultra microscopic bacteria called Salmonella typhi, the name of that bacteria. So that means the cause is that small, effect is so big. Conversely, ignore the effect, see the cause. So if we see the cause is the smallest factor, which in that smallest factor, the karya is residing. The seed of the tree, we can't see the tree in it, but when planted, subsequently the tree comes out. But it can be inferred that the tree in the miniature form is already existing in the seed, the bija. By this logic, we can always say that the Jnanendriyas, Karmendriyas are gross, and then we are also going to see the Prithvi, Jalat, etc. Those tattvas, all these are formed as karya. So they must have a cause. The cause of everything is in the smallest form, seed form. Once we understand this, then it becomes easy to understand the word tanmatra. Now, let us see what is tanmatra. The jnanendriyas which are created, the eye is a jnanendriya, it is created. And there is nothing to see. What is the point in creating the eye? That means for the eye, this is an instrument. No, jnanendriya is, indriya means karana, instrument. For the knowledge, instrument, jnana indriya. So eye is a jnanendriya. But there has to be a subject for the eye to see. There has to be a subject for that eye to see. Now let us say my eye is seeing this particular pain. Now the fact is, this I have given the name pain. So this is a pain which I used to write, etc. That is functionality. Object-wise, this is called by the name pain. Up to this point, fair enough. But when I see this, there is a facility, there is a criteria of seeing a thing. Seeing a thing, that means my eye has ability to see. Eye as such has got retina, cornea, etc. It's an instrument. But instrument is a physical part of it. It has a functional part called seeingness. It sees, right? Now, when it sees something, this seeing has rupatva. Rupatva. If I'm eating something, I may be eating a mango, but that mango is a name. There is a rasatva. I may be smelling something. There is a gandhatva. What I'm trying to say is, whenever we perceive anything, the perception may be named in any manner you want to name it, as per the name and the whatever. But there is a absolute intrinsic quality to the functionality, which is called that isness of that thing, or gandhatva, rasatva, rupatva. Those are called tanmatras. Let's take another example. A shape of a thing, akar, circular, square, etc. These are names. Shape, shape, shape. What is the meaning of shape itself? We can't translate this word. Why? Shape like, we can say shape like square, shape like. No, I'm not asking shape like. I'm asking what is shape. Shape is, you can't describe it. Shape is inherent in all the shapes. Cow. Cow is cow, fine. Red cow, blue, black cow, black and white cow, milk giving cow, four-legged cow, grazing cow. These are all functionalities. Cow, gotwa, it is called gotwa. Gotwa means cowness. Now, this is slightly difficult to understand because it takes us to a very different but very important concept. And the concept is, before creating anything in this world, the creator has to have an idea of what is being created. Think about this. Let us say you are God and you want to create a new animal. Tell me, how will you create it? See how difficult the task is. Because you cannot think of a new animal unless you have a reference to the old animal. But God has created the creation for the first time. There is no reference. In that case, there is something called ideation. After all, this creation is nothing else but translation of God's idea. Ideation, that is called sankalpana, sankalpa. This sankalpa, when it is created, then the first thing that comes in existence is in the seed form. The word or the sankalpana takes the shape of, in a seed form of what is about to come. Now I'm coming directly to the Panchamahabhutas. We all know that there is Vayu. Okay, why we all know? Because Vayu, we feel it. We have seen wind blowing. We know its presence, fine. But imagine when the Vayu is not created and it is about to be created and the Lord is going to create a Vayu. First of all, because he is omniscient and omnipotent, he is able to ideate like this. That is not our job. We cannot do it. It is beyond our capacity. But now the Vayu is to be created. In what shape the Vayu? Now we know what Vayu is. But when he's creating it, imagining the Vayu in the mind of the Lord. We're trying to take the analogy of Lord as a man. Imagine the mind of the Lord imagining the Vayu, and now he's going to create the Vayu. So that means he must have already in his mind that Vayu will be invisible, it will flow, it will not be understood, but it will be felt. These are all ideas that came beforehand. When the idea comes, so between idea and the creation of the ultimate object, there is beginning of that creation. This beginning in microscopic form is called tanmatra. Effect is in the fullest form. Cause is in the infinitely small form. That infinitely small formed cause is called tanmatra. There will be a lot of questions. The questions have to come. We need to threadbare discuss the questions because this forms the basis of those 4 words that we have. Now, once we understand this, vitarka vichar, we will understand easily. This is where we are coming to the basic. Tanmatras are what is called as shabdatva, sparshatva, rupatva, not rupa. Rupa is final formation. Rupatva, shabda nahi. Shabda is final. This is what I'm speaking is word. But this word, when it emanated, parapashyanti madhyama vaikhari, now you will understand 4 types of speeches. That paravani. Paravani is place where potentiality to form the word is created. Shabdatva. So those are called tanmatra. So now We have seen Jnanendriya, we have seen Karmendriya, we have seen Prana, we have seen Antakarana creation from the Sattva Guna, from the Rajaguna. Now we come to the Tamoguna part. In the Tamoguna part, Tamoguna is dominating. Sattva is not dominating. Raja is not dominating. Means what is happening? The lowest of the guna is dominating. Lower the guna. That means you go towards the tama, more jada the vastu, more insentient the thing. Jnanendriya, highly sensitive. Why? Sattvansh is more. In tamoguna, because from tamoguna, the bhogya vastu are formed, the nature, the trees, the sea, the water, the wind, the whatever pancha mahabhut you see is all from tamoguna. From tamoguna. Now, in that tamoguna, before the pancha mahabhutas are formed, Prithvi, Jala, Teja, Vayu, and Akash, these five are formed. Before they are formed, they are available in the causative level, in the small, purer form, pure Akash, Shuddha Jala, Shuddha Prithvi, Shuddha Vayu, Shuddha Agni. Purest form of individual each Panchamahabhutas are called Panchamahabhuta Tanmatra. Panchamahabhuta Tanmatra. What is the peculiarity of this Panchamahabhuta Tanmatra? One, they are in microscopic form, causative form, very small, subtle, very, 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 very subtle. They do exist, but they are subtlest. Second thing is they are in pure form. And third criteria is these five are ready or can, and they are ready to form the actual Pancha Mahabhutas. So how the actual Pancha Mahabhutas are formed? That process is called Panchikarana. Quintuplication. Quintuplication is Panchikarana. What is Panchikarana? Let us take the first Mahabhuta, Vayu. Now we have on the table Panch Mahabhuta, Pancha Mahabhuta in pure form. Akash, Vayu, Agni, Jala, Prithvi. Imagine those five as the five substances kept on a shelf. Now you want to form what is called as gross Akash, the Akash that we know of. These five, what we call subtle tanmatras. They are subtle elements. They are Vayu, Jala, but they are causative, small, microscopic, subtle elements, which we can't see easily. The yogi sees it, but we are going to come to it later. Panchikarana means from the first thing, let us say you want to create a Vayu that we are used to. So first what they do is take half of the Vayu and take 1/4 of the remaining 4 elements. So half of Vayu and 1/8 of Vayu. We have taken half of Akash, 1/8 of Vayu, 1/8 of Agni, 1/8 of Jal, and 1/8 of Prithvi. That will form another half. Mix them together, Vayu is formed. Akash is formed. Now you want to create Vayu, take half of the Vayu and 1/8 of the remaining elements, and Vayu is formed. You want to form Agni, which we see as Agni here. So Agni will have half of Agni and 1/8 of all others. This is called Panchikarana. Panchikaran quintuplication is for the formation of gross elements which we see. So the Pancha Mahabhutas that we see or experience, including the water that we drink, is formed by Panchikaran of Sukshma Mahabhutas called Tanmatras. So that means now we have 5 Jnanendriyas, 5 Karmendriyas, Mana. Then we have 5 Tanmatras, 5 Pancha Mahabhutas, and Purusha, Prakriti, Mahat, and Ahankar. All these form 25 tattvas of Sankhya. So the world, the creation, everything in the creation is made up of these 25 elements, 25 tattvas. Not one tattva is added to this, not one tattva is reduced from this. So these 25 tattvas form the creation. And that is how the creation is formed. It is still continuing. It will continue to be there. Whenever it will be formed like this. This, after a complete intellectual comprehension in the great Samadhi Avastha, Kapila Muni realized and wrote about it. That is why in Bhagavad Gita, in Vibhuti Darshana, Muninam Kapilo Aham. I am the Kapil. That is what Lord says. Because Kapil Muni has been given that stature. The reason is, it is he who comprehended this. And not only comprehended for the theoretical purpose. The Yoga Shastra utilized this, took it as fact and worked upon it to reach the avastha of Kaivalya. And that is why, to understand Patanjali's Yoga Shastra's mantra, that sutra that we are seeing now, this creation is going to be of immense help for us to understand. To recapitulate what we have learned so far, it all started from absolute consciousness called Purusha, potentiating for the mode of operation called Prakriti, giving rise to Mahat or Buddhi, and Ahankar thereafter called cosmic consciousness. Up to this level, differentiation has not begun. The qualities of the gunas were in Samya Avastha, they were not up and down. The upping and down has started, the imbalance in the gunas has started, and that is where from the Tamoguna, Sukshma Sharira, that is Jiva Sharira, and the Sthula is produced, the gross. The first we saw how the Sukshma is produced. The Sukshma is produced by taking Sattvamsha from that Tamoguna, Jnanindriya are formed. By taking the Rajogunamsha from that Tamoguna, the Karmendriyas are formed. Then taking all the Rajogunamsha together, Prana is formed. Taking all Sattvaguna together, Antakaran is formed. And that is how what is called as the Sukshma Sharir or Linga Sharir is formed. That is for the Jiva Sharir. For the Sthula part, that means our Sthula Sharira as well as the Sthula that we see around, Pancha Mahabhutas are responsible for it. These Pancha Mahabhutas are formed from the Tamoguna. Which Tamoguna? Which is existing in pure form as Pancha Mahabhutas. And these purer forms of Pancha Mahabhutas as a causative, subtle, small, invisible aspect is called Tanmatra. Pancha Mahabhuta Tanmatra. This Pancha Mahabhuta Tanmatra then are mixed with each other to form the gross Pancha Mahabhutas, which we call Akasha, Vayu, Agni, Jala and Prithvi. These Panchikarana are done by taking the Mukhya Bhuta as half and others 1/8, 1/8, 1/8, 1/8 forming 1/2. So whenever we say Prithvi, it has half Prithvi and 1/8, 1/8, 1/8. First four like Akash, Vayu, Agni and Jal will be 1/8, 1/8 each. And that is why we see Panchikarana being formed. So these are gross Mahabhutas. Now, if we see the whole creation, what is the grossest form we have? The Pancha Mahabhutas that we see around, the Sthula Sharira or the objects that we see, they are all formed from this Prithvi, Jala, Tej, Vayu, these 5 Pancha Mahabhutas. What is subtler than this Pancha Mahabhutas? The Tanmatras. Why? They are the causative elements of these 5. So they are little subtler than that. And these both are Shuddha Tamoguna, predominant Tamoguna. So that is why they are lower. So first, lower of the lowest is Pancha Mahabhuta or the objects that we see around. Little higher than that is Tanmatra or the causative factor of these objects. If you go little beyond that, a little finer aspect, refined thing beyond Tanmatra would be the mind, because Rajagunatmaka, the pranas or the mind that we see is where we are coming. Still further finer than that is Antakarana. And once you want to find a finer than Antakarana, you go to the Ahankara. Now we are going reverse. This is precisely what is used by the yogis in the Samadhi. First, they try to focus on gross Panchamahabhutas. Sthula Panchamahabhuta means object. And that is why you take Vishnu or Shaligram or whatever your murti in front of you. That murti is made up of Panchamahabhutas. You focus on the Panchamahabhutas, then once you focus and you transcend this Panchamahabhuta, you go to Tanmatra. Now, how do you go to Tanmatra? They are not to be seen. By transferring your consciousness, we saw what is subject-object transference in the last, that is Samapatti, we saw. And we are going to see it again because the entire Sadhana Pad is talking only about Samapatti. All these concepts will be repeated in the remaining part of the Patanjali Yoga Sutra. We are trying to see it as much as width and depth possible because then later on it will become more and more easy to understand. So first we focus on the gross objects to know the intricacies of the gross object by transferring the consciousness, which is called dhyanam, meditation. Perhaps by now we know how difficult the meditation is. There are many people in this world who come and say that yesterday almost whole night I was meditating. This is a statement of a very high caliber, and such a person is so rare to see. Meditation is a very difficult art which requires enormous amount of power of concentration, which cannot come unless vairagyam is achieved. A very high level of vairagya, giving rise to sattvangsha uditata of the buddhi, can lead us to meditation on the gross objects, and then the gross object exposes its own body. It is called Tanuswam in Kathopanishada. It is as if the object comes and tells you who I am. I'm actually a Panchamahabhuta. Look at my Panchamahabhutas. Now there is no looking here. There is experiencing here. So once you get into this object, then the object bears itself of its contents of the Panchamahabhutas, and you start understanding the Panchamahabhutas. Understanding Panchamahabhutas of an object, one object, is same as understanding of any other object. So that is why if you meditate on one object, at the end of the meditation, you have meditated on all the objects of the universe because all of them are of the same nature. That's why many times it is also called as you are focusing on the universe of objects. Now, sometimes we get a question, how can you focus on such a big universe, such a large galaxy? No, you don't have to do it everything. You just do it on one object that itself bears you the entire galaxy to you. Why? All of them are solid objects. All of them are Panchamahabhuta. All of them being of the same constitution. The concentration of an object itself leads you to that point. And once you do that, then one door, suppose there is a house with multiple rooms. The first door is opened and you go inside the room. Immediately what you will see? You will see the second door. Now, can you see the second door when the first is closed? You cannot. So similarly, once you get into the object through the meditation and open yourself and be there for some time, and with clarity you see everything, you see the second door. That means this gross or the sthula Panchamahabhutas lead the way to the Tanmatras. Because there must be a question in the mind, that's gross or the sthula Panchamahabhuta, I know, at least I can take it in front and start meditating on it. But what about Sukshma? They are not to be seen. No, that door opens only when this door opens. You cannot directly jump to Tanmatra, through gross, sthula to Tanmatra. Now what happened? First I was focusing on the object, sthula, then I went to the Sukshma, which is Sukshma Tanmatra. Now if I meditate on Sukshma Tanmatra, Then what happens? That door opens. Then after that, third door comes. What is third door? The third door is nothing else but my mind. So I focus on the mind. Now I am neither focusing on object, I'm not focusing on tanmatras, I'm focusing on mind. See, I'm going the reverse way, the creation we spoke about. So I focus on mind. When I focus on mind, then I focus first on the mind's thinking ability. Because antakarana has that vrittis in it. Thinking is vritti. So I focus on those vrittis. The third door opens. I am on the vrittis. Again, I go further and the fourth door opens. And the fourth door is the Shuddha Sattva Ansha, which gives enormous amount of pleasure. And once I cross that door, then I have almost completed the downward spiral of entire creation and I have reached the point of Ahankar. Which Ahankar? The Ahankar of those first four tattvas that we saw. In other words, we saw a ladder of creation, and in Samadhi, we go up so one is evolution of the universe, and in Samadhi, you involute yourself. There is another word also used for this. It is called a laya. Laya means first the gross is gone. Why? After meditating, no more gross is seen because you have gone to tanmatra. So it is gross tanmatra or sthula pancha mahabhuta is done a laya in tanmatra. Then tanmatra's laya is done in mind. Then mind's laya is done in shuddha sattvansha, ananda. Then shuddha sattvansha's laya is done ahankara. Ahankara's laya is done in mahat tattva. Mahat tattva's laya is done in Prakriti, and Prakriti's lay is done in Purusha. The work is over. Kaivalyam. Evolution, involution. So evolute, involute. This is what we need to understand the mantra that we are studying. And this is not a pure theory. This is proved by the yogis and written about it. So Patanjali Maharaj is not writing a fiction, he is writing a experienced treatise about his own experiences. Now comes the question that stool object, that is Panchamahabhuta, Tanmatra, the small Panchamahabhutas, then mind, then the Shuddha Sattvansha of the mind, all these are at the mind level or below it, at the mind antakaran level or below it. That is why when you are going backwards up to this point you are aware of it, but when you go beyond the mind point you can't be aware. Why? Because awareness in this world is because of the antakarana. You transcended the antakarana, you went beyond that. That is why any experience beyond mind, they say neti neti. I don't know what, I cannot describe it. Description is not possible beyond the mind. Up to the mind, description is possible. And all these four words that we saw are experiences possible by the mind, so they are described in detail. Even Patanjali Maharaj, after this sutra, what is beyond mind, that time he said, whatever is left is beyond mind. He doesn't describe anything. Why? It is not possible to describe it. And that is how Sankhya Tattva of creation or evolution is needed to understand the involution aspect. We are all open to questions. We are all open to discussions further. But understanding this is going to be a very critical part for us to understand everything. Even if it is Sankhya Yoga, which we are studying in Bhagavad Gita. A superficial understanding of Sankhya Yoga, Gurudev talking just Sankhya, no. When Gurudev says there is nothing in Bhagavad Gita except Sankhya, it is a statement of profound importance, because a realized person is talking about what Sankhya is. That is why we must understand Sankhya Tattva Jnana, more so the creation part, so that the sadhana becomes an absolute firm foundation. It is based on the firm foundation. And that is how these 25 tattvas, 5 karmendriyas, 5 jnanendriyas, then mana, then you have this 5 tanmatras, which makes it 21, and then purusha, prakriti, mahat or buddhi, and ahankar, 25. And all that we discuss now in 1 hour, Kabir Maharaj says, Moola Kamala Dal Asana Bandhoji, 5-25 पकड़ मंगाओ जी, ये 25 को पकड़ में ले आऊं मैं, निर्भय निर्गुण गुण रे गाऊंगा, शून्य निशान पैराऊंगा. शून्य means nothing is left to meditate, sir, I did everything. निर्भय निर्गुण गुण रे गाऊंगा, there is no fear there. Nirguna, there is no sattva rajatama there. That is why these are called Gudha Kavyas of Nath Gorakshanath, Kabir Maharaj, Namdev Maharaj, even Jnaneshwar Maharaj. He speaks in very mystical language because these are experiences which only they can understand. All they can do is take some support of words and describe it, and it becomes difficult for us to understand. अंबर में अमृत का कुआ, बिन मुख पीवे इक सुवा, वहां काली नागन खेली जुआ, 8 मरेगा 9 धार. This is what Kabir Maharaj says. This entire 4 lines is nothing else but Sankhya Tattvajnana, if understood properly. This is called Ulat Basi language of Kabir Maharaj. So most of these yogis, they use cryptic words. That is why Upanishads are full of cryptic words, because these are mystical experiences. And we are not trying to create a wonder about it. The idea is basically to understand how difficult it is to word and comprehend intellectually, and yet we need to do it because this is a part of the sadhana. Hari Om. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.
Hari Om, Sanjay ji.
Hari Om.
This Swamiji in Kenopanishad, there is one drawing sketch he has given. In that, this below the Maya, the 3 Sattva, Rajas and Tamas is shown. And this Sattva, Rajas and Tamas combined together, he put down, and one is the tossing power, the Vikshepa, and the other is the Avarana. And in the Vikshepa, there the unmanifest, the manifest, and then the organs of perception, the Jnanendriya, and then organs of action, Karmendriya, has been shown. So it's as a mixture of Rajas and Tamas, this all produced. Because when you said that from the Tamas, the Sattvamsha is creating this Jnanendriya, I got a bit confused about that. So how the Sattvamsha is there in Tamas?
Hari Om. I understand your question. What Gurudev has given and what you spoke about is Advaita's theory of creation. What I spoke is Sankhya's theory of creation. There is a slight difference in them, but the difference is reconcilable. It is not a difference of a real type. When I say Sattvamsha of Tamoguna, what I am trying to say is, in Advaita, Rajas and Tamas, these two are taken together, and Rajas is supposed to potentiate the action of Sattvamsha or Tamoguna, and then the creation is done. That is how it is interpreted there. What is said in Sankhya Tattvajnana is that First of all, you cannot have Shuddha Sattva. Highest Sattva you can have. Shuddha Sattva you cannot have. Shuddha Sattva is possible only when Guna Samavasthas. Yes. In Guna Prakshobha Avastha, Shuddha Sattva is not possible. Maximum possible Shuddha Sattva is available only with Ishvara. And Malina Shuddha is Avidya. So first guna that we talk about after the imbalance is Shuddha Sattva and Malina Sattva. That is the first. Shuddha Sattva is Maya. Ashuddha or Malina Sattva is Avidya. I hope this is clear.
Yeah.
Now, when you have this moment, you have Malina Sattva, Jiva is created. When you have Shuddha Sattva, then Maya is created. So first two creations are done. Now the question is, in these two creations again, we have to create things further. From that Maya Tattva, Ishvara has to create the Srushti. And from our Jiva, which is Malina Sattva, he has to create the Linga Sharir or the Sukshma Sharir. For that creation, grosser the element, Tamoguna is taken for the recourse. And finer the element, Sattva-guna is taken for the recourse. And middle the element, Rajoguna is taken for the recourse. However, again, we are going to slightly into the deeper of this creation. Suppose the Sattva-guna is going to create Jnanendriya. This Sattva-guna cannot create Jnanendriya unless there is an element of movement of creation into it. So it has to take help of Rajoguna. Why? Because creation presupposes some movement. Karya. Karya means there has to be a Rajoguna there. So, how Sankhya interprets is, Sankhya says, from the Sattvansha of the Tamoguna, taking help of the Prerana of Rajoguna, Jnanendriyas are created. So, in other words, in Gurudeva's language, when he's talking about Vikshepa, Vikshepa means what? Karya, movement. So Rajoguna is there. Jnanendriya, there is no Vikshep. That means Sattva-guna is there. And the places where Sattva-guna and Rajoguna, both do not dominate. Take an example of a stone. Rajoguna, minimal. Sattva-guna, minimalist. Tamoguna, maximum. That's why there is a completely stoic thing. It doesn't move. It doesn't understand. It doesn't have much of antakarana. It still has Sattvansha, but it is so insignificant. Rajoguna, so insignificant that only its presence is felt. I hope I am making it clear. Grosser the object, dominance of Sattva-guna is maximum. And functionality-wise also, finer the functionality, Sattva-guna is maximum. That is why eating, Rajoguna. Sitting, sleeping, Tamoguna. Thinking, Sattva-guna. See the three, in one body only the three act in this manner. That is why Prakruti as an evolute, when we see what we studied today is Sankhya Tattva-guna, which was taken not in toto by Advaita, but was changed to suit, because there is no Maya Tattvam. The word Maya itself is Shankaracharya's creation. Although the reference to Maya is there in the Upanishads also, but it was crystallized by Shankaracharya, and that is why creation as per Advaita is slightly different than the Sankhya Tattvajnana. We are in Yoga Shastra, so our focus is on Sankhya, so we are sticking to the Sankhya. Later on, they got merged so much that in Bhagavad Gita, it is called Sankhya Yoga, and you will see that the word Purusha is also used. You will see that Brahman is also used, Parabrahma is also used. Frankly speaking, Prakriti and Purusha and Parabrahma are same, but they are used in a different manner. So that is why I would say about 5 to 10% difference you will definitely find between Sankhya and this. That is why the creation that I spoke of is from Sankhya Tattvajnana point of view. When we will see Upanishad or Bhagavad Gita, I shall be talking in terms of Avidya, in terms of Advaita. And that is where I will be using what you just spoke. That is the manner in which it is given there. It is a slight difference. If we study it a little further, you will see that the difference is not a major difference. However, yes, for example, 25 tattvas, Sankhyas do not compromise on tattvas at all. They say 25 means 25, no compromise. In Advaita, tattvas are not given so much a dominance. If you see, have you ever seen the word tattva in Advaita? No. It does describe the things in the similar manner. Panchikaran is there. In fact, Panchikaran is more elaborately described in Advaita, although it is taken from Sankhya. That is why parallels you will find in Tanmatra, in Jnanendriyas, in Karmendriyas, in Panchikaran. These are common points between the two. But things like, where is Mahat Tattva in Advaita? There it is Maya, and after Maya, creation. Where is Mahat Tattva? Mana Buddhi Chitta Ahankar, it comes there in the Jiva. But Buddhi as a Tattva prior to Jiva and Sukshma and Sthula is not there in Advaita. So we will find the first 4 Tattvas. There are 4 considered by Sankhyas. In Advaita, you have Parabrahma, you have Maya. Maximum they have made a difference as Gunakshobhini Maya and Mula Maya and Tula Maya. That is how they have divided it. So there are some differences, but sketch as in general, and for our practical purpose from yoga as well as dhyana point of view, more or less both are same. That is why Advaita talks about Layavad. There is, here they don't say it as a Layavad, but actually what is happening to these 4 different types of samadhis is Laya only. Hari.
Sanjay, just one other thing, on typically, like, what Himanshu also brought out in Vedanta, you generally separate mind and intellect, right? So, but if you look at the classical thinking, and we also talk of these 5 sheets, but the question is that very often a lot of texts say manas, chitta, ahankar, all as part of the mind itself. So are these classifications, are there, these sheets are, even though I know that very often the texts also say, look, there is no differentiation. So is it, but when we study Vedanta, no, you look at intellect as something completely different from so the buddhi part is supposed to be completely different, but in all the other texts, it's part of the same. So I just wanted some clarification on. My clarification is 4, I don't know if I'm clear. Normally they say the mind is 4 parts, right? Manas, Chitta, Ahankar and Buddhi. Whereas in Vedanta, we tend to separate these elements. So why is that happening?
There is no difference at all. What all we are talking about 4 are not compartmental types. They are functional modification. Functionally, it modifies the same mind, mana. When it is doing a function of sankalpa and vikalpa, it is called mana. When the same antakarana is doing decision making, it is called nishchaya, it is called buddhi. When it is holding on to a particular concept for a long time, it is called chitta. So, and when it is saying that when it is functionally doing a role of me, mine, it is called ahankara. So it is the same substratum called chitta or antakarana or mind in general, which takes 4 different functional modification depending upon the role played. The role makes the difference, not the substance. The substance is same. It is not structural modification. It is functional modification. So that is why if you do not modify the function, then it is just plain antakarana or chitta. If you modify it, it will get a name. So it is not a structural change. It is just a functional modification. And functional modification of chitta or antakarana is itself called vritti. And not to modify is the aim of Yoga Shastra. Hari.
A point, because from Purusha comes vritti, and then we moved on to Ahankar, which is, so along with Ahankar, what are the other corresponding elements?
See, the first is the infinite consciousness called Purusha. Purusha giving rise to what is called as Prakruti.
Yes.
Prakriti is also called as Pradhana. In some parlance, it is also called Pradhana. Prakriti giving rise to a tattva called Mahat or Buddhi. And Buddhi giving rise to Ahankar, which is cosmic consciousness.
Okay, ji, okay.
These
And-
four are prior to differentiation.
Yes, yes. And then from Ahankar comes next level, right? Which is
From Ahankar onwards, it is the play of gunas. The
Play
play
of
of gunas starts after Ahankar, cosmic consciousness.
okay, ji, okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I wanted that.
Actually, my request to everyone is that we all are. This is a function that we all of us have to participate and take it forward. So I would be very, very happy, and it would be my request to Gurudeva also, that let us put a lot of questions. Let the questions come from all the quarters. What happens is the intellectual fermentation is then much better, and the concepts for once for all, if we are clear, I can assure you that it gives enormous amount of impetus to the sadhana that we are doing. A kind of seriousness that comes to our sadhana after the study of this is altogether different. So that is why let the questions come, and let us not forget that the person who is speaking also is equally ignorant. So let us have even the basic of the basic questions, so that we are very clear about what we are studying. This particular sutra I have stopped here for a very specific reason, so that we do not have any difficulty for the rest of the Yoga Sutra that we are going to take. If we slip here and move forward, then rest everything is going to become, because we are going to study Ashtanga Yoga, which is a very practical aspect. For example, Yama Niyama. Now, if you are going to study Yama Niyama, the question will always keep gathering the mind. Why should I do that? Why should I do that? Once the fundamentals are clear, then those concepts are going to be a cakewalk for us. So we are right now traversing to the most difficult part of Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Samadhi part is the most difficult, intricate, and it's a very, very penetrating kind of a thing is required there to unfold it. And I really appreciate what Meenakshi ji said. To break into small things and understand is the best way to move forward. So my request to everyone is, let the questions come, let the questions galore. That will help us, everybody, because somebody's question may help in answering somebody else's query also. So Hari Om, please, everybody, if you could just put in questions in our group, in voicemail form or in the written form, it will give me an idea as to in what way we can kind of, collectively move forward. Hari Om.